And I would say, like, all of my work is based in remembering. Not about adding stuff on, intellectual knowledge. It's about remembering what you already intuitively know in your body as a felt understanding. You know that feeling when you just know something is right and it's like you feel it in your body, not in your head. Am I right? You're like, oh, that feels true, right? So, I remember key moment from childhood when I was in school. You know how you remember the things from school, like either the traumatic things or the really important moments? And I remember a really important moment where a teacher wrote on the board the word education and broke it down to the Latin and said educare, right? And explained that the root of the word education comes from the Latin, which means to draw out from within. To draw out from within. And it just went boom, right through me. I was like, I know that's true. And the teacher explained, that's what education really should be. It's a process of drawing out from you what is already truth, which you already know, rather than layering all kinds of programming on top of you and narratives that may or may not be accurate, may or may not be true, right? So my approach in coaching, whether it's natural health coaching or spiritual coaching or life coaching, is always, the answers are within. I never tell anybody what to do. I don't give advice. That's not how it works. You are the authority in your own life. And what has happened to us is we've outsourced a lot of that authority, right? So this lecture is entitled The Simplicity of Healing because it really is so much simpler than we make it. It's so much simpler than it's been made out to be. And a lot of it involves remembering that simplicity and coming back to your own authority. So that's what we're going to talk about today. How's that sound?
Great.
Yeah. Okay. So, the result is, I heard some of you say, like, if you're on a healing journey for whatever reason, whether it's you're dealing with autoimmune stuff or, you have an actual physical condition that is with you, or maybe it's been plaguing you for a long time, or whether you're recovering from a trauma or life circumstances that, have changed the way you see things, right? The healing journey is totally holistic. It's never just on one level. If something is expressing physically, it's present at the other dimensional levels of your being, right? Because everything has to work its way from the subtle to the gross in order to get here. So when you're experiencing a physical condition of some kind, it has its expression on other dimensional levels before it appears in the physical, right? So we always are dealing with ourselves as a whole being, not just the body, right? So when you're on a healing journey, if healing feels hard, if it feels arduous, if it feels complicated or confusing, it's not because you're doing something wrong. It's really because we've made it so much more complicated than it has to be. And we've forgotten some basic principles. Most people don't fail at healing. They just get lost in the complexity of the system because health has turned into something that we believe we've got to outsource. We don't trust our own knowing anymore. And listen, just to preface further remarks, I'm not anti-medicine. I'm not anti, going to see a practitioner. I am for that, but I am pro-discernment first. And I am pro being in communication with your own body and being first and foremost, right? We've got to remember that we are the authority. So this talk is not about fixing yourself. It's about remembering how the body works and what it already knows and how it's actually designed to heal itself. So we're addressing a fundamental inversion of truth here. Okay? Truth has been inverted to, and it's the very inversion that makes this conversation necessary in the first place, right? That's why I titled this series, We Need to Talk. We need to talk. There are things we need to talk about. And just on a personal note, I would say, I'm not talking about anything that I haven't personally experienced. And I try never to do that. But my own journey has been one of unlearning, deprogramming, rather than accumulation of knowledge. I mean, it's important to learn and to be informed, but accumulation of knowledge is not where it's at. Information is not transformation. I think I see a lot of nodding heads, right? So, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. And my work has really shifted from, over the years, from doing more to removing interference, right? So each one of us has a clear signal and connection to source. Okay, source, the infinite field of all that is information, intelligence, love. Some people will call it God, some people call it the universe, some people call it quantum field. Okay, we're connected to something. We have a signal, direct. Okay, no intermediary necessary. And that signal over time gets gummed up with all kinds of static. Okay, so I consider my work to help people remove the static. I'm doing it myself every single day. This is, I'm not talking to you from some lofty position like I've got it all figured out, I've done it, I know. That's not where I'm coming from. I'm facing the same things you guys are facing every single day. And we live in an environment that's very toxic and anti our health and anti kind of waking up to truth, right? So even though that is the situation, that the environment, the circumstances that we're facing, we're still waking up. It's just amazing. So I think there's every reason to be optimistic. Healing is simple. It's the interference that is complicated. Okay. So if we had our slideshow, we'd be moving to another slide now, but we don't, right? Just imagine. It was such a pretty slideshow, too. We live in why this conversation matters, why we have to have this conversation in the first place is because we live in an era of information overload, don't we? I mean, it's like, too much, right? We know more than ever on one level, but we trust ourselves maybe less than ever because we're bombarded constantly with information, and a lot of it is false information, and most people don't know how to tell the difference between what's true and what is misinformation or disinformation or what, like all of the chaos that we're dealing with, right? Because you cannot get that stuff straight through your mind. That's not where we understand and have discernment. Discernment happens from here, the heart and the body, right? And and unless something is interfering with our communication with ourselves, right? That's usually a clear signal. But for most of us, we have to get back to that place, right? So we have infinite access to information, though that information may be curated by powerful interests. We don't necessarily know what we're looking at, but we have diminishing confidence in our own body, in our own ability to tell, is this okay? Is this real? Is this, I know that in our family Instagram chat, we'll often send videos to each other, and my brother is the great debunker. You'll send what you think is a hilarious video, and he's like, AI. I call him the party pooper. So, health has become, in this environment, something that we have to manage, right? And, something that we're constantly trying to find or return to instead of our natural state. Health is a natural state. Balance is a natural state, right? So, in all this, one of the reasons that we get so confused is that we've really been trained to, and programmed to outsource our authority, to believe that somebody else knows, that we don't know, first of all, and somebody else knows, or some, system or institution knows better than we do. And again, I just want to clarify, I'm not anti-medicine, I'm not anti-practitioner, I'm pro-relationship with the body first, okay? So we really live in an age of synthetic complexity now. What I mean by synthetic is it's imposed from without, right? It's the opposite of organic. Organic is just natural, right? Organic is natural knowing, it's intuitive knowing, it's what's real, right? And what's organic is always simple, right? Even though it may be complex, right? Complexity exists in organic systems. They're mind-blowingly intricate, right? But they operate by very simple laws. So you can be sure that if something is getting overly complicated, then you're lost in a synthetic complexity about something, right? Mathematicians, I love mathematicians when they solve some major theorem or something like that. They inevitably say at the end that the solution is elegant, right? They know they've found the truth because it's elegant. There's a simplicity to it, however complex the process was, right? And it's the same thing with us. Modern systems are built on control, on prediction, and on intervention. And our body in the present system is really treated like a machine, right? A faulty mechanism that goes wrong and has to be fixed, right? I mean, do you agree with that? Is that what you've experienced? More or less? I mean, there's always people who see subtleties. There are definitely great practitioners out there who care about people, but the system itself, right, also parses the body, fragments it into pieces. You got this specialist, this specialist, this specialist, this specialist, and that's why the health journey often gets really complicated, because you're going from this person to that person, this person, instead of, well, let's look at the whole picture and all of the different aspects of your nature and being, right? So in this, model of reality, symptoms are treated like a problem, an enemy, something that has to be suppressed, rather than, maybe if we listen to that, we could follow it like a trail of breadcrumbs down to the actual root cause of an imbalance, rather than just getting rid of the symptom. Because, listen, I mean, nobody should have to exist in pain, right? We want to take care of pain. But we also need to pay attention to symptoms rather than just trying to get rid of them because they're inconvenient, or because, they're frustrating or scary, right? Like, well, what is it actually saying, right? When the body is seen as a machine, symptoms look like breakdowns, right? But when the body is seen as intelligent, symptoms are seen as communication. Communication. If we're operating from the basic premise that the body is intelligent and that it's not against you, that it's not betraying you, right? I hear this a lot from clients, like, I felt my body betrayed me. Okay, that's been fed to us in the system, right? It's not actually true. The body is always on our side. It's trying to keep you alive, right? It will do anything to bring you back into balance. And that's what the expression of symptoms is. That's where the symptoms come in, because the body's like, okay, whoa, I'm dealing with all these different things here on the mental level, on the emotional level, and the stuff that She doesn't even remember. It's embedded in her cells and the stuff that was inherited genealogically, genetically through the DNA, and then the state of the world. And blah, blah, blah. She's juggling all of this stuff. And then a symptom appears, right? And then we, from our limited perspective, are like, oh, it's so inconvenient. Let me just pop some pills and get rid of it. The body's like, right? Every time we do that, then the symptoms get pushed. They may disappear from one area, but it's like whack-a-mole. It's going to jump up in some other area, right? So it's just intelligent of us to question, well, what might this be an expression of? Where does it come from? How do I feel about it? What's bringing up in me, right? It's not our fault, okay? It's not a personal failing. It's just that we've been trained in a certain way of thinking and seeing. There's a manipulation of our perception around these issues. And it's really easy to understand why, because when you do a little bit of research, you can find out how it happened. I mean, this is like a whole rabbit hole, which I won't get into, but simply put, we were all born into a system that was intentionally shaped by very powerful interests, Rockefeller, Carnegie, those guys, the Flexner Report back in 1910, that sought to discredit natural healing methods and elevate pharmaceutical dominance for profit. I mean, it's just as simple as that. Okay? I think most people get that now. So that means that modern medical training, that med schools, right, are funded by the pharmaceutical companies. So what are they going to teach the people who are coming up? Well-intentioned people who care about people, who want to help, they're going to get taught, how to medicate people, not necessarily how to get to the root cause of disease, not necessarily how all of the different systems are connected and how the body functions harmoniously as an intelligent ecosystem, right? So if you look at the world, you can see how that parsing is expressed in our environment, for example. Like people throwing trash around in the old days without even thinking, well, wait, where's this going? Is it going into the water? How's that going to come back and affect us, It's the same mentality, right? So I'm not harping on any system in particular. I'm saying it's a question of consciousness and how much consciousness, how much awareness we have, right? So, in this system, then medical intervention medical health care is built on intervention and manipulation of the parts rather than intelligence, and symptoms are treated as enemies rather than messages, and the body's viewed as a machine of different parts instead of a holistic self-regulating ecosystem, which is what it is, right? It all makes sense when you think about it and you look at the big picture. Yeah? You with me? Okay. You don't have to agree, You can have another feeling. I'm not asking anybody to agree. I'm just bringing up, and we'll have a little Q&A after. So what I'm suggesting is that through the modern systems that we were all born into, we didn't have choice, this synthetic complexity has been imposed on the simplicity of healing, which in most cases will occur if we just get out of the way and support the process, right? Remove the interference, remove the static in the system. So we're not rejecting science here. We're just noticing what's missing, right? Science is amazing, real science, not, curated science. Real science that's based in unbiased research is amazing, and it advances more and more and more, right? But we want to notice, well, what is missing here so that we can re-empower ourselves. So the cost of all of this complexity is loss of trust in ourselves, right? Loss of, and that loss of trust engenders fear in our system. We experience a loss of confidence, which leads to paralysis. Like if you don't have confidence that you can be in a relationship with your own body, right? Because the scythe has come in and cut us off from that relationship by outsourcing our authority, right? It's So the doctor knows best, and you don't know, and right. So when we lose confidence, then we kind of get into a state of paralysis, and we're afraid, should I do this? Should I do that? I don't know, And we then, the end result is a loss of our inner authority, and that creates dependence on the external authorities, right? So I remember feeling totally out of control even as early as adolescence, not in charge, like, I don't know what's happening here. I don't know what's going on here. I mean, TMI, but like major attack of yeast infections when I was 16 or 17 years old. I was like, where's this coming from? Like, I'm feeling really uncomfortable. Any woman who's experienced a yeast infection knows it's hell on earth. It's awful. It can make you even feel sick to your stomach when it's really intense. Didn't know where that was coming from. Had a boyfriend, picked up on the shame in society and thought, oh my gosh, down here, maybe it's related to having a boyfriend, sin, shame, guilt, all of that stuff. Went to a gynecologist for first pelvic exam. And she's like, you have a boyfriend? I'm like, yeah. She's like, are you a virgin? I'm like, yes, that was the truth. She's like, are you sure? Exactly. So you get a kid, you get a 16-year-old girl who's like, I'm just really like, right? And you get all of that heaped on top. I'm not saying, oh, poor me. I'm just saying, typical, right? Well, how to have yeast infections? Well, because I was taking antibiotics like it's candy. We didn't understand what that connection was. If you're going to take, antibiotics, you got to take probiotics. You got to rebuild your gut biome. The whole thing is going to get out of balance, right? Instead, I'm like, and like recurring, right? So one bout of antibiotics, douches, whatever, and I'm like, okay, creams and all that stuff. And then a month later it comes back. You're like, no, not again. I never told my mom this, but my poor my poor boyfriend at the time, he was so sweet. And his aunt was a gynecologist in another city. And I was like, it's back. And he's like, okay, well, we'll call my aunt. So we went to a payphone in the 80s, went to a payphone in the rain. And he's feeding coins into the payphone, and I'm on the phone with a woman I've never met, his aunt, who lives somewhere like Tennessee or something, and I'm like, and so she prescribed more of the same stuff, right? And he skulked in like he was doing a drug deal, to the pharmacy to buy it for me with his own money, right? Why would you go through all these contortions and convolutions if you're not like separated from your own body, right? So it's nobody's fault, right? This is the system we were born into, and now we're starting to wake up and heal from all of this disembodiment, dissociation that we have all been subjected to in one form or another. Okay, so this is good news, right? I can tell stories like that and laugh because that kind of thing put me on a journey early in my life to be like, well, nobody is helping me out here. They don't know. Every time I go to the doctor, they just want to give me something, covers it up, and it comes back, and I'm sick and tired of it. So I better figure this out on my own. So I started doing my own research. I started, playing with my diet. I started, that's part of my journey. And everybody's got their version of that, right? Where you just get sick and tired, right? Sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? So we've been trained to distrust pain as something that's inconvenient and should be suppressed rather than the messenger that could lead us to the root cause of an imbalance if we listened. We've been trained to distrust fatigue as something to override, right? Because we live in a culture that rewards productivity over presence, right? We've been trained to mistrust our intuition as something that's airy-fairy. It isn't real. We say, well, it's just my intuition. Well, just your intuition. Intuition is like the non-linear guidance system that carries you through life, Wow. I didn't know what intuition was until after college, like starting to hear that word, taught to distrust hunger, right, as something that should be dispelled. It's like not a good condition to be in. You're hungry, you should eat something. Well, should I? I mean, maybe I could just allow a little space, because something happens when you get hungry. Feelings start coming up, right? Habits that we have to reach for comfort, to reach for something to fill the void, right? Things start coming up when you fast. I just did 5 days fasting, so I'm fresh off of it. So I really, I know that experience intimately, and it's taught me so much. We've been taught to basically distrust natural cycles, right? Organic cycles. They get dismissed or they get kind of flattened out while we're entrained to synthetic cycles, imposed cycles that are, again, based on productivity and consumption and, work hard to make money so you can buy the things and keep up with the neighbors, or, commercialized holidays, Thanksgiving, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Christmas, New Year's, it's like, okay, let's keep going, got another party to go to at the darkest time of the year, when really what you want to do is just be at home, quiet, when there's less light. It's like the opposite. That's why I said we're dealing with basic inversions here of what's natural, what's real. So when trust in these inner signals that are coming to us all the time, 24/7, because the body's always communicating, when the trust in those signals gets broken, then dependency is created. Dependency on the outer system. So when something goes wrong, you're like, I got to call somebody, right? I'm not saying don't. I'm saying check in first, right? So a body that you don't trust is a body that you will hand over. They don't necessarily have our best interests at heart. I think we've been finding that out. So when we distrust the body and we hand over our power, that's when we enter this marketplace of confusion, right? You're looking everywhere, and even if you're on the natural side, you're like, I'm not going to the doctor anymore. I disdain the medical world, the allopathic model. I went through this phase myself, right? I'm only going natural route. Well, guess what? The same patterns are operating there too. Joke's on me, right? They're still operating in that world too. But then you're in the world of endless supplements, right? And they get prescribed to you just the way that the doctor would prescribe antibiotics or pills, pharmaceutical. Same model, right? Because the same consciousness. Got to fix something from the outside in, right? So you're conflicting advice because you're going from person to person. You've got this whole biohacking culture, like, yeah, we're gonna get it. We're gonna hack into your body. Even that word is violent, right? Like, hack into your body and figure it out. Listen, I'm not saying that sometimes. And this whole health as like identity performance. You get health coaches, like, I'm a health coach, like, oh boy, it's bags under my eyes and I look like crap today, you're supposed to be healthy and radiant all the time, so then you start to try to perform your health, right? Influencers peddling miracle solutions and all of that, right? So it's a circus, right? Everywhere you go. Complexity keeps people busy, but doesn't necessarily keep us healthy, right? So we've got to return to these basic principles, like shut out all the noise, right? Healing is not something that the body occasionally does. It's not like hit or miss, Healing is what the body is always trying to do. Always. No exception. Even until, the moment before you die, if you're dying of an illness, the body is still trying. Still doing everything it can until it gets overwhelmed. And then the balance is, towards degeneration. I mean, I don't need to tell you, we all know that our cuts heal automatically. We don't have to tell it to do so. Our digestion is occurring without our directing it. You know, our body is restoring itself when we sleep. We don't have to ask it to do it. It just does that automatically. So the body is naturally self-regulating, naturally self-healing, always communicating with us. It is our friend. We mostly just don't listen because we have been separated from our bodies. It is painful to be separated from your body. We all know there's a kind of grief at having been ripped away from your divine vessel, right? And how did that happen? Well, we know, right? We've been talking about that. And what is the result? Loss of trust, loss of confidence, loss of inner authority. So the body does not need to be taught how to heal. It doesn't need to be forced into it. It just needs permission. And that comes from removing what is in the way. So let's talk about the root cause of all disease. Oh, my favorite slide. Too bad. This is really the spine of what we're talking about here, where illness actually begins. Okay, well, we've already been talking about it. It begins in that disconnection, that separation from our body's intelligence. Disease doesn't begin in the organ. It begins when the body's no longer trusted, no longer listened to. Things filter down from all the other dimensional layers of our being and eventually express themselves in the body. If elimination is blocked, right? We're a system. We need to eliminate. We need to get rid of things. So if those elimination channels are blocked, and we have many, if nourishment is inadequate, our soils are depleted, our food doesn't have as much nourishment as it used to. A lot of it is poisonous. I think you're aware if you shop at Everman, right? We're dealing with that. If emotion is suppressed, there's stuff you just don't want to feel. You're just afraid of what that's going to do if you have to feel that thing that you have been successfully masking for your whole life and may have actually made you successful, right? It's part of our identity, and so we don't want to mess with that. You know, I've got my Jenga tower set up nice here and I don't want to remove that thing because the whole thing is going to fall, right? If intuition is dismissed, which it is maybe less nowadays, but, you know, I mean, we all know intuition has been largely dismissed as hysterical, feminine, or, you know, woo-woo. In other words, when signals are ignored, then what happens? The toxic load increases and the nourishment decreases, and then we've got a problem, right? So the body doesn't fail. It adapts until it just can't anymore, right? We get away with a lot. We get away with so much. Our body is so good to us. Whew. When you think of all the stuff, you think about my husband. My husband has a really strong constitution. You know, he comes from generations of Welsh people who like worked in the farm and stuff. You know, he's like a bull. You know, he's put his body through a lot, and his body is like, I got your back, buddy. You keep on going. I'm just going to keep on backing you, right? So really, the body has only two needs. Could it be so simple? Yes. This is a return to first principles again. If you strip away every protocol, every theory, every system, the body really is only asking for two things. Anybody want to venture a guess as to what those might be? Nothing, there's no wrong answers. I'm just curious to think. What do you think, what are like the only two needs that the body actually has? Anybody want
to wake up in the morning and to relieve yourself.
Okay, right. That's elimination, right? Okay. Anybody else?
Nourishment.
Nourishment, yeah. Anybody else? Hydration. Yeah, those are all things. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you gotta have enough water, right? Yeah. Sleep. Yeah, you guys are all, you know, pointing to it, right? I this is the way that I decided to express it, right? One, a clean internal environment, and two, the resources to rebuild that environment, okay? The root causes of disease are really come down to a toxic internal and external environment, right? We can trace everything back to that. And when I say toxic, I'm not just talking about on the physical material level of toxicity. I'm talking about toxic thoughts, toxic feelings, toxic inheritance through, generational trauma, right? Also the environment around us physically can be toxic without our even realizing it. What you're sleeping on, what you're breathing, the water that you're drinking, So if we can clean up that internal environment, so internal inside yourself and the environment around you, right? So that is the ability to eliminate waste, right? Like you said, Will. And then the resources to rebuild, adequate nourishment and rest, right? So you guys named it. And when these two needs are met, then the body just remembers itself. Everything else is secondary. Just, right? That's simple, right? Nobody's, my husband went to the doctor for a recurring lip infection. And I'm like, just do a liver cleanse. Will you just do a liver cleanse? No, he lives in a different paradigm. That's okay. We understand each other, right? So he told me, he's like, so I went to the doctor, again, about the lip thing. And I had to wait for 90 minutes. I'm like, what? It's like, yeah, not in the waiting room either. I was in the waiting room 10 minutes, and then I got into the, where they make you sit on paper. And then I sat on paper for 80 minutes, and I'm like, you are joking. He's like, no. And I said, well, what did he say? What wisdom did he have to impart after you waited on paper for 80 minutes? He's like, well, you've got, a Latin name for messed up lips. You're like, well, I could have told you that. I'm looking at the mirror every day dealing with this, Did you give you antibiotics? Yeah. Okay. I can't remember why I went off on that tangent. So when we know that we really only have the body has really two basic needs for healing, then why does it stall? Well, we've established that healing is natural, that it's an automatic process of the body unless it's interfered with. So what interferes with that process? We've already named some things, right? Anybody want to throw something out there?
Sorry, what was the question again?
What interferes with the process?
Of healing?
Yeah.
Fear of death.
Okay, yeah, that's a big one. He goes right to it. Yeah.
Mama taught me right.
Anybody else?
I guess just an overload of toxins.
Yeah.
And just your body's drowning in so many toxins that it kind of gets, I don't know, let's say paralyzed, but it just can't. It's like working probably through sludge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of sludge. You find that out when you're...
I would say it could be personal relationships.
Could be external toxicity. Yeah, that would be in my category of external toxicity. Yeah, well, there's also like the loyalty that we have to our personal relationships with people who don't necessarily see things the same way we do. We've got paradigm loyalties. We've got, right, all of that stuff comes into it. So how did I express it here? Well, definitely we're living in an environment of constant stimulation, right? Right? It's like the onslaught, constant input, constant distraction, right? Through many different vectors, right? So it's hard to keep your attention on it because you're constantly being, right? Fear-based feelings, fear-based narratives too, right? You turn on any media, it's like, be afraid, be very afraid. We're all doomed. The world's coming to us. Things are just really bad, right? What happens when that happens? Well, the nervous system is constantly, whether you're aware of it or not, it's constantly in fight or flight, right? Your kidneys are like all the time. It creates a cascade of negative effects in the body over time when the nervous system is in a low grade state of anxiety. We call it hypervigilance, right? You're just, right, if you sneak up on somebody like, that only happens, so you're not in the jungle, we're not, in a battlefield at this moment. So if you tap on somebody's shoulder and they have a reaction like Kramer on Seinfeld, one of those things, because the nervous system is hypervigilant, right? So that's coming from the animal brain back here, the reptilian part of our brain, right, where that stuff is, old, really ancient reactions, right? And so that kind of way of living creates all kinds of toxic effects in the body, right? Chemical reactions in our biochemistry, right? And then you've got poor sleep because you're worried, without realizing that you're worried. The third thing that I put here was never allowing emptiness. Right? So that's related to constant stimulation, right? Sitting without your phone, without a book, without something to distract your mind. Meditation, people say, I can't meditate because I can't stop thinking. Well, guess what? You're human. You live in the world. That's the whole point of meditation, is to just allow that emptiness. Also, eating without hunger, right? That's not allowing emptiness. It's lunchtime, so I guess I'll eat. In France, where I lived for years, lunchtime is only between 12 and 2. If you snooze, you lose. This is when you're supposed to eat. This is the programming. You eat between these hours, and then you go back to work, right? Even if you're not hungry, go eat, right? Using food to mask discomfort, because discomfort feels dangerous, because we are hypervigilant, because our nervous system is on edge, right? See how it all fits together? It's really simple. We've been trained to fill every space, but healing requires just that, space. It requires space, spaciousness. Modern life, whether we like it or not, it creates accumulation of toxins, of emotional residue, right? And it creates depletion of minerals, of enzymes, of our vitality, of our attention. Accumulation and depletion. So the body gets blamed for reacting appropriately. That's why symptoms are not failures, they are a communication. Body's like, please come back to what's real. So how do we activate, again, our perhaps sleeping innate self-healing mechanism, right? So after you're under a pile of sludge and you feel just apathetic and you feel when you start dragging around, and not just your body, but your attitude, you're feeling negative, you're feeling whatever, you don't feel lit up by life, you're that's you're drowning, you're under, you're subjugated, you're subjected, right? When that's happening, we need a little help, right? So we've got to give ourselves the goose, right? Goose our natural, innate self-healing mechanism again, right? And when you do, it's I'm here, I'm awake, I was always here, I just couldn't hear me, right? So cleansing is the process of dissolving and removing the obstacles, the distractions, the accumulated buildup in your internal and external environments. And please remember, this is multidimensional. We're never just talking about the body. We're never just talking about the physical plane. We're talking about all of the planes. So there are 4 aspects of intelligent detoxification, okay? Because, detox can be a fad too. You've probably noticed that, right? Detox your body, go in and just biohack that detox. Number 1 is listening, right? Listening. Paying attention before overriding something, right? That is related to spaciousness, okay? Number 2, simplifying, right? So fewer inputs, Like, okay, I'm taking 1 million supplements right now. Ooh, not to mention that it costs thousands of dollars, right? Fewer inputs, fewer rules, right? If you're like super rigid because you're like, oh, I have to do this, otherwise, because otherwise I can't do this, I can't do that. Like you're hamstrung by your own rules. Anybody ever been in that state? I have. That's right. So simplify. So listen, simplify, create space, right? That means digestive space, like maybe eating a little bit less often, only when you're absolutely hungry, just to leave a little space, for things to start moving, because the digestive system is overwhelmed, the gut is, in a state, emotional space, like space to feel your own feelings, instead of covering them up with whatever we reach for to cover them up, right? Mental space, right? Like mental health break. No screens, like go for a walk in nature, put your bare feet on the ground. We live in a place where we have the good fortune of being able to do that more of the year than not, right? Watch out for fire ants. And finally, following the right order of cleansing. And this is something that gets left out a lot, I think, in the whole culture of detoxification. There's a proper order of cleansing, because the systems of the body and the elimination channels are, in most cases, pretty well blocked up, pretty well overwhelmed. And let's say, you're like, I get it, my symptoms are because of heavy metal poisoning. Well, yeah, we all have heavy metal poisoning. We're all dealing with that. I remember years ago, I did one of those, when you put the foot pads on and you detox through your feet at night, and then you send the pads into a lab and they analyze them and send them back to you, tell you what's in your body. I was like, this was after 2 weeks of using detox pads. Okay, so I'd been using them for 2 weeks. I sent in my last set of pads. Got back the lab analysis. It's like arsenic, lead, cadmium, aluminum. I was like, oh! It's just in the air. It's falling from the sky, right? You see those streaks up there. It's falling from the sky. It's coming up from the ground, right? It's in pesticides. So we've all got heavy metal in our systems. We all need to get rid of that. But that's not what you're going to do first, necessarily. Why? Because you have to open up the elimination channels. If you stir up that stuff, but it's got no way out, it's going to recirculate in your bloodstream, right? And then that's not good for us, right? Same with parasites, right? Everybody's got parasites. I don't care what people say. Everybody's dealing with parasites now. If you have pets, you've got parasites. If you eat sushi, you've got parasites. There's parasites everywhere, and parasites are not just the worms, it's not just the ones you can see, right? We're dealing with parasitic overlays in our culture too. A culture of parasitism where, I won't get into that, that's a whole other lecture. But we're all dealing with parasites. Is that what you're going to deal with first? Not until you've cleared your elimination channels to some degree, right? Adequately. So there's an intelligent order of cleansing. This is one of the things that I teach, because when I put the pieces together, I was like, people need to know this. So I created I have a whole 6-month program which is following the intelligent order of cleansing. The body is so overloaded, it really needs to be prepared. And there are many ways that we can do that are simple and free. So healing does not come from doing more. I think we're getting that now, right? It comes from getting out of the way. Is what happens when obstacles are removed. And under today's circumstances, frankly, cleansing and detoxification, they just have to be a lifestyle, right? Until things shift, it needs to be a lifestyle if you want to achieve your health goals naturally, right? And when we try to take a quick fix, a shortcut to healing, it always comes back. We got to do, it's just like psychologically, emotionally, there's no quick fix there, right? You just have to deal with what's coming up. You just have to love yourself enough to embrace whatever is coming up when it's coming up, right? And that is a process. It is a natural process. It takes time. We don't have to draw it out. We don't have to belabor it. But, space, time and space, simplicity, listening, cleansing. So basically what I teach is restoring trust and sovereignty. That's a key word for me. Whether it's with your physical health or your emotional life or, your spiritual life, it's all about sovereignty, right? And that is recognizing that you stand in your own natural authority in life. No system is above you. No person is above you, right? No one's below you either. But, you stand as sovereign in your own authority. And that, that is a key to recovering health, holistic health. So we got to move from being expert-led in our society to being self-led. And again, this is not about rejecting help. It's about reclaiming discernment. So discernment over dependency on external systems, external people. Notice if you've got a problem that you're working out, is your first impulse to be like, I got to call so-and-so and call so-and-so. I'm going to call 3 people and get their opinion, right? I'm not saying don't ever ask for feedback, right? But do you immediately reach outside for other people because you don't trust yourself, right? That's something to pay attention to. I've got the educare, drawing out from within, right? It's in me somewhere. I have wisdom. I'm connected to the source, right? So if I open up the space and I trust myself, something's going to come sooner or later, right? So we're opting for that kind of discernment over our dependency on other people, other systems, other people's opinions, other people's, how they look at you, we're opting for now relationship over control, relationship with your body instead of control over your body, right? It's got to do this, it's got to look this way, and it's got to be right? Right? Seeking relationship with our body rather than trying to control it or make symptoms go away, right? Go away, I don't want to hear from you. I don't want to know about you. That's like driving around. You've probably heard this one, right? Driving around, the engine light comes on, and you're like, I'm just going to put a piece of tape over that and just pretend like it doesn't exist. Keep driving, right? Well, sooner or later, you're going to end up on the side of the road, right? And inner authority, right? Trusting what feels right to you intuitively, because you are the one who knows, right? Rather than blindly following external suggestion, even if it comes from an expert who seems to be in a position of authority. You are the authority. You stand by your nature in your own natural authority. And if when I say that, something goes, I'm not so sure, well, that is how you've been diverted away from it. Yeah, but I'm not a doctor. I don't know. You don't need to be a doctor to have a basic relationship with your body. If you have a basic relationship and listening with your body, you catch things sooner before it becomes the catastrophe down the line because you put your piece of tape over the engine light and now the engine's blown, right? I'm not saying you like you guys. I'm saying yeah like we, right? I'm referring to myself too. I've done it too, obviously. That's why I'm standing here with my lifetime learning behind me. And listen, true practitioners, whether you're talking about medical professionals or coaches, mentors, anybody that you go to who is real, they will never ask you to outsource your power or your authority to them. They will always hand you back your power. They will always try to restore power to you because they know that that's where it comes from. They don't replace your intuition, right? They help you hear it again. They'll never tell you what to do. Like, well, what do you feel? What is going on? What's coming up, right? And then you find your own way there. It's just the most amazing process. Whenever I'm working with somebody new, I'm like, wow, what am I going to discover that's amazing about this person? Because every single time I'm in awe of, well, if I just hold the space, that person their wisdom comes through. It comes up. It's like a geyser. You can't stop it. This is how we're built. This is how we're made. It's miraculous. All right, so inner authority is a muscle. All right, if you've lost your sense of inner authority, then it's going to take a little bit of massaging to get it back, but it's there, right? Intuition strengthens with use. Simplicity rebuilds our confidence. When we strip things away, like, okay, simplify, come back to what's real. And small choices restore agency, rather than trying to do everything all at once. Like, I'm going to do one thing every day, right? One thing. And then you start to get your trust back. You start to get your confidence back. So what health sovereignty really means is, to me, is it's not about perfection, okay? Perfectionism stems from this internalized voice that says we aren't good enough, that we need to perform worthiness, which leads to a tendency to override the inner voice of truth. I'm speaking from my own experience. Real relationship with the body is about respecting its rhythms, not about having to be perfect, right? No matter what, like muscle through. It's not about isolation. It doesn't mean, health sovereignty isn't about doing everything alone, rejecting the establishment and all of that. No, you're not alone. You're not cut off. It's knowing when something is aligned and when it isn't. You can take in external inputs, but they're not going to overwhelm your own inner knowing. You can entertain things. It's like anything. It's like being at a table with people who have a bunch of different opinions, right, about things. If you get really triggered and reactive in a situation, like, it's because of a lack of inner space, right? If you can hear a bunch of different opinions, including ones that you don't agree with at all, blah, 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 without getting all triggered and all like messed up and stuff, I'm going to tell that person, how dare they? How can they? I'm a stupid idiot, and all these judgments and stuff that go on. I can just hear my own mind. Then it's the same with you and your relationship with yourself and your health, right? You've got enough space to be like, would this be right for me? Would this be right for me? How does that feel? How's that hitting my body and my knowing, right? Rather than, I'm desperate, so I'll just do anything, right? Or, no, that's evil, that's the devil, like consideration, right? So there's an ongoing dialogue, right? You're in a relationship of trust with yourself, with your body, that deepens over time. And when you return to relationship with your body, it stops shouting at you. It's more reasonable, right? You pick up on the subtle signs so you don't have to get to a critical point with your health and panic and freak out and then give away your power. All right, I want to give you guys a quick, simple take-home practice. Okay, we're good on time. This is what I call the presence timer, okay? The presence timer is super simple and extremely diagnostic. You will learn so much about yourself if you practice with a presence timer. This is something I give to almost every client who comes to me, whether they end up working with me or not. I always want to give value. I always want to, leave people with something, so that they have something to work with when they leave after a conversation. So presence timer is when you take your phone, your timer, your watch, whatever it is, and you say, all right, I'm going to set it at intervals throughout the day to just go off randomly or every couple of hours or whatever. And when it goes off, all you have to do is take 3 conscious breaths. That's it. Like, oh, that's easy. Well, wait till you try it, right? It's like beep, 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 beep. And you're like, oh, okay, that's my presence timer. Okay, I just have to finish doing this thing first, and then I'll be present. Okay, hang on. Got a message from so-and-so. Well, before you know it, it's like, that was an hour ago. Okay? So you'll see how quickly your mind overrides the presence timer and will tell you very seductively and very reasonably why you can't be present right now. You see how insane that is? Because what in your life would not be enhanced and made better by your being more present? I can't think of anything, right? So this shows us our training into distraction, right? Oh, but I'm having a conversation with somebody. They're going to think I'm weird if I take 3 conscious breaths. Well, how do they know? When you're listening and you're breathing, suddenly you're like, I'm here. I'm here with this person. I'm more aware of them receiving this person, right? Oh, but I'm talking. How am I going to take 3 conscious breaths while I'm talking? Well, you take that one and then you're talking, and as you're talking, you're exhaling, you're thinking, I'm here, I'm actually present, I'm aware of what I'm saying, and I'm not just flapping my gums in the wind, right? Actually, what I'm saying has meaning. It has my presence imbued in it, right? There's no situation, take it from me, there's no situation that you can be in that would not be made better, enhanced by you being more present. That's all that matters in life, is your presence, what you bring to it. I'm just as guilty as the next person, not guilty. I'm just as apt as the next person to be like, oh yeah, really? Oh, okay, right? You caught me in the kitchen. Tell my mom's talking to me and I'm like, yeah, let me just finish this thing. I got it. Oh, it's a message from so-and-so. Right? I mean, that's just the reality of what we're dealing with, right? So the presence timer is a really great tool, no matter where you are, what your situation is, to see what's going on really in your psyche, in your mind, in your life. Are you giving yourself really space throughout the day to just be like, I'm alive, I'm here. I don't have to produce anything at this moment. Right? It's good enough for me to just be alive and breathing. Yes, I am enough. We could call the I am enough timer too, right? But this is how trust is rebuilt, right? It's not through grand gestures. It's through little things like that and the consistency of little things like that. All right, so that's pretty much all I have to share with you today. I just want to, invite you into a felt sense of the remembrance, because you already know this. It's just educare, right? Real education. I'm just reminding you of what you already know, and I've been seeing your heads bobbing up and down as throughout the hour that I've been talking, and so I know that you know this already. There's very little that you're hearing today that's new. You're like, oh, I didn't know that, right? But generally speaking, you're like, yes, I recognize this information. Yes, I recognize something in me says this is true, right? Educare. Your body is not broken. There's nothing wrong with you inherently. No, right? You can come back into balance. It's not too late. That's the second thing, right? You're not late. I've heard many cases of people who were given the death's door diagnostic by the doctors. That's it, go home and die. There's no hope for you. Who said, you know what, that was the moment where they were like, I guess I'll take over now. Okay. They've given me no hope. So you know what, I think I'll do 12 liver cleanses in a row or fast and then, 12 weeks later go to the doctor because it's a habit, or just to prove I'm still alive. You told me I was going to be dead. I'm still alive, and they scan him and like, we don't understand. It's a miracle. This can't be true. Let me scan you again. You must still have cancer, right? I mean, it's never too late. You are the authority. You stand in your natural authority. So when you decide to activate that authority, it's not too late to activate that authority, right? Even if you walked out and then got hit by a bus and that was the end, you had that moment where you were like, guess what? I activated my inner authority. That was worth it.
I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
If we're here to experience and to be educated, have you ever contemplated the fact that pain is part of that education?
Yeah, absolutely. Don't we learn from pain and suffering until we decide? Well, pain and suffering are two different things.
That's what they call karma.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And how does mankind, what do we all have in common? What's the singularity that we all have in common?
Our humanity?
We all have the right to attain deity.
Oh, yeah, well, I agree with you. Well, what if we already are deity?
Actually, as a matter of fact, we have the ability to achieve that through education. But it doesn't take just one time.
Oh, you're talking about reincarnation and stuff, yeah.
As, yeah, in certain aspects, sure.
Yeah.
But people who are adepts can supersede you mentioned, in fact, earlier that you don't have a choice in your being. I believe
In what context did I say that?
you said earlier that you can have a choice in your being.
Oh, in being here.
Correct.
Yeah.
I don't believe that's
Well,
true.
I know what you're pointing to. Of course, we're here by agreement.
Or, I agree with you.
I mean, I know that we're here by agreement. But once we're here, like, this is what we chose. So you can't say, well, you know, the world shouldn't be this way. Well, the world is this way. In that we don't have a choice, right? The world is this way, but the world is a reflection of ourselves, right? Collectively, individually and collectively, because we're fractals, full universal fractal of the source. So everything, and I think this is what you're also saying, right? Like, everything is within you. We haven't discovered everything yet. We haven't remembered everything yet. But that's why we're here. And, you know, to go back to what you said about pain and suffering are not necessarily the same thing, right? You can be in pain without suffering. You can suffer without being in pain, right? Certain amount of suffering may be necessary. I'll speak for my own life and my own truth, right? A certain amount of suffering was necessary to get to the point where I was like, all right, I'm done suffering. I may experience pain. That's part of life. But it doesn't mean I have to suffer, right? The 3 things I tell myself every day, which I think are great mantras, which I learned from the amazing George Kavassilis, who's been a mentor and a colleague of mine. I am a creator being. Okay, so I am the creator in my experience. I'm done suffering. I only want what's real. I'm a creator being. I'm done suffering. I only want what's real. That's like a compass that will, if you really take that on board, that will ensure that your greater being is, you know, our greater being is always at the wheel, but, you know, I think it creates more communication between the version of us that we're experiencing here and the greater being.
I think once you have a sufficient amount of education, you'll be able to overcome that.
Overcome what?
The need for what you were just expounding. You were just.
The need for. Can you rephrase what I said in your own words?
As a matter of fact, I only caught little bits of it.
Oh, okay.
So it's possible that I misunderstood, but I don't believe so. Because it's coming from within me,
Okay.
not from what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what are you saying? Could you take what you're saying and be able to translate that in a language that I can understand, or attempt to understand, or put
All
it
right,
to silence
I'll
or
give you
understand?
a little. What's the fairness in having a child born and die an hour later, or to die a day later, or to die a month later, or to die a year later? What's the sense of that? It was the time necessary for the person, for the soul, to experience the sunlight on their face, to experience putting their hands in the water.
Or the family's experience of that loss too, right?
As well.
I mean,
as well.
there's an order. I see that there's divine order in everything. I mean, an overarching order in everything. I love how you cut right to the key questions, Will. The most important, you know, like you're not like a guy who likes small talk. I'm imagining.
I have kind of, I've been I've come from an interesting family. That's put it
Yeah.
that way.
Well, I guess, yeah, okay. We can all say that in one way or another, right? In our family, we say insanity. There's a streak of insanity in our family, and someone else said, "Honey, that's not a streak. It's a 5-lane highway."
I think it all has to do with self-realization.
Yes, agreed. Now, hey everybody, hey guys, before I close this on Insta, does anybody else have any questions or comments related to the discussion before I shut down this transmission?
What is a liver cleanse?
A liver cleanse? There's many ways to do a liver cleanse. If you look it up, you'll find different methodologies. But you're basically just helping the liver decongest, because the liver is the main organ. I mean, the skin is also an organ of detoxification, but the liver is like the big organ of detoxification. It's dealing with processing all of this toxic load and trying to push it out of the body, right? So the liver cleanse, lightens the load on the liver. And, our livers have really been overcharged. Most people's livers are not functioning at 100% capacity. In fact, far, 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 far below. Dr. Ed Group, who's a really well-known authority in the world of natural health. You know Dr. Group? Yeah, yeah. He has a lot of integrity. He's my mentor for health coaching, and he says that most people's livers are functioning at about 10 or 15% nowadays, right? So if you do a series of liver cleanses, every time you do a full liver cleanse, about 6 days, okay, and that involves simplifying your diet. It's not complicated. It's simple, right? Simplifying your diet, in other words, taking the things out that can have a tendency to congest the liver, to compound congestion in the liver. Certain herbs, although you don't have to. In my program, I did everything with nutrition, so that if somebody couldn't afford herbs or didn't want to use herbs, or order special things, they don't have to, right? Because Hippocrates said, "Let food be your medicine," right? So for 4 or 5 days, you get the body prepared by eating very lightly, sensibly, things that support the liver. And then very often you can use castor oil packs on your liver with a heating pad, just to help loosen things up. And then some people say, fast on apple juice. There are lots of different ways, right? But at the end, typically you're going to do some kind of a purge, and that often involves olive oil and, grapefruit juice. I like to put grapefruit juice. Otherwise, this whole book, hard to get through. But you drink that down, and then, there's a flush that occurs, right? So you can do a 2-day liver cleanse, you can do a 4-day, you can do a 6-day. But typically, if you do a 6-day full-on liver cleanse, and you're vigilant about keeping it clean, you can get about 15% of your liver function back per 6-day liver cleanse, let's say. Okay, that's not exact, and every person is different, obviously, but we're trying to get back more functioning of the liver so that it's not so overloaded. That's a great question. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
I know earlier, I don't know exactly how you phrased it, but something like, there's detoxification and elimination, and there's a certain order you need to follow, but I've never heard you really say what the...
Yeah. Okay, great question. So first thing is the gut. Okay? So if the major channel, right, the colon, the gut really starts here and ends here, right? So we've got to work on that whole tube, right? So first we work on cleaning the gut, and the gut microbiome is out of order, topsy-turvy for most people, right? Overgrown with unhelpful bacteria and organisms instead of, the good stuff that is there to help us. Because, we don't live alone in here. We have all kinds of help, all kinds of microorganisms that are contributing to our balance, and we depend on them. So first we restore the balance, we clear out and we restore the gut microbiome to the best of our ability. Then we can do some liver cleansing, right? Because the major channel is like, if you're going to unplug plumbing in your house, it's the same thing, right? If there's a major plug, in one of the pipes, you got to get rid of that first. You can clean the sink and you can try to do all this other stuff, but if it's plugged at the exit, it ain't going nowhere. It's just going to back up even further, right? So we got to work on the gut first, right? Then we can work on the liver. because we've helped the gut, and so that elimination pathway is clearer. So whatever the liver's doing now, this has a clearer passageway to go out through. And as you clean the liver, that is helping all the other systems come online, right? So every time you do a liver cleanse, you're helping, right? So you do a couple of those at least before you move on to a parasite cleanse, right? Then you can work on a parasite cleanse, and a parasite cleanse takes a certain amount of time because we have to account for die-off of microorganisms and how long their life cycles are and stuff like that, about 40 days for a parasite cleanse, okay? Once that's done, go back and do another liver cleanse, at least one, right? Because we got to pick up, reboot the system. I mean, I like to do a gut cleanse too. I don't know, but you don't have to. Once you've done that, and you'll know because you're like, oh yeah, woo, you've got more energy, your system is feeling more, you just know when you feel good. Then you can look at a heavy metal cleanse, right? Then the channels of elimination are open enough that you're not in danger of recirculating these dangerous heavy metals which are sequestered by the body.
Do you believe in chelation?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can chelate naturally with food, right? But I wouldn't recommend doing it before you have been working with the whole system, right? And then start all over again, right? Because cleansing it's like with anything, it's a layered process.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's a layered process, right? So your second full body cleanse is going to be different from your first one. Your first one, it's like, okay. You're just trying to orient yourself, right? You can go through the whole experience, and then if you decide, okay, I'm going to do another full body cleanse, it's going to be different. The third time you do it, it's going to be different again because you become more subtle, right? We're moving from the gross to the subtle in every dimension of our life, right? We're how can I put this? When the body's all gummed up and you're like, you're dragging, your thoughts are, everything is kind of dense, vibing lower, it's hard for you to feel your subtle nature. It's just, you're living in a different zone, right? First cleanse, you might clear away a lot of that gunk, right? That was pulling you down, right? Second cleanse, you might like suddenly hit this big emotional thing. You're like, what's going on? This didn't happen the first time. There's nothing wrong. It's ready to come away. It's ready to come up, right? It's layers. It's like, layers of soil, digging down. There's one city, and then like 3,000 years before that, there's another city there. You're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. And then you keep going down, and then there's something else. I mean, it's the process. It's the process of self-discovery and self-recovery and remembering. And the more space you gain, because we are 99.99999% space anyway, the more space you remember in yourself, the more subtle your being is, the more attuned you become to the subtle elements of your being, the more attuned you become to little things that are going on that you couldn't hear before because there was just too much noise, too much static, too much interference in your system. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
What's the thing about milk thistle?
Kefir? No.
Pardon?
I thought you were going to say kefir.
What
I
about
think it
milk
was-
thistle?
I heard something about that in liver
Mhm.
cleanse.
Yeah, it's an herb that would be supportive. In like if you drink, some people will drink milk thistle tea during a liver cleanse. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah.
And do you recommend some of the things that are, natural, organic, here, like from Everman's for these cleanses, or these are mainly the foods where you have your grapefruit juice and you have your apple juice?
You could use that. I think it's very important to know where your supplements are sourced. Know the origin of your supplements, because as a layman, we don't really understand what are all those seals mean on the bottle. What is that? EcoCert. Well, what does that mean exactly? What does this seal mean? There's one certification that Dr. Group told us anecdotally. He said, that there is a certification out there that looks really legitimate, makes you think, oh, well, this has been through all of the, protocols. And so it must be clean, it must be organic, it must be safe. No, well, the last element to receive that certification is that you irradiate the product. So just because it's got a seal on it doesn't mean it, you know what I mean? That's why I trust Global Healing. I know everything that's why I, if I'm going to recommend supplements, I recommend people here at Everman's. But I mean, and I'm not saying that there aren't, high quality supplements that you could use. I mean, the simplest thing is to know how to do it with food. And then to use intelligent supplementation. I'm personally just not a big fan of like gobs and gobs of supplements. I think that just is, if you do it, you do it in a targeted way. And, it's not piecemeal, it's like this one and that one. It's holistic, part of a holistic approach, right? That's what I mean about the intelligence of the order of cleansing. And yeah. Does that make sense?
Oh, most definitely.
Okay.
And by the way, I do notice a great changes, elimination and a salad at night.
Yeah.
I don't know, it just seems like that roughage just
Well, that's good. That's good, right?
And not to eat heavy, then I eat, more of a other meal like in the middle of the day maybe.
Right.
Or finish.
And that's what's right for you, right?
Yeah.
Because for somebody else, it might. That's why that's why I say listen, right? Because every person's different.
Everyone
Yeah.
has to say and what's right for you.
I've got a little group going through my program right now, and they're very active on the group chat, and I'm loving.
And he wetted the paper, and he dropped blue drops where the people lived into their centenarians.
Yeah.
With the highest concentrations of centenarians. And we were going through this thing last night where the guy goes, well, they said it was diet, or they said it was altitude, or they said it was this. And the guy's coming to the conclusion, it's pretty cool, just in the first one, what do all these people have in common? The ones in China, and the ones in Mexico, and the ones in Sicily. And it was very funny. He was talking to this lady, he was talking about her spirituality. He says, do you go to church? And she goes, yes, every day. He goes, where's the church? She goes like that. The church is 250 yards up this incline like this.
So she's walking,
yeah. Without realizing that they're exercising the same as the Chinese. Yeah. Every day they spend an hour or two in the garden. Yeah. They don't know it, but they're exercising. They're just doing the same amount as a workout in the gym.
That's right.
And plus, the really cool thing that the Chinese people said, or the Japanese, like Okinawa, he said that only consume 80% of your food. Yes, yeah.
Well, that's an old yogi trick too, right? The yogis said you should only eat what you can hold in your hands, right? And they say 1 part food, 1 part liquid, 1 part empty space, right? So 1/3 food, 1/3 liquid, 1/3 empty space, and the size of your stomach, right? I mean, it's true. We generally eat way more than we need, right? We just don't realize it because a lot of times we're fulfilling an emotional need through eating rather than an actual physical
need. I've been
need.
a chef for half a century, fine dining.
Oh, you have? Wow.
So, and what the Okinawans were doing was not only, they were preparing, I was talking about the average diet is based on 2,000 calories a day. Most Americans consume twice that much a day.
Yeah.
Now, like the little lady in Sicily going up and down the street, and plus she lived on the 3rd floor of a house.
Yeah.
Okinawans, they don't have chairs. They sit on the floor.
Yeah.
They have to just getting up and sitting down 30 times a day is the same as doing 20 or 30 crunches.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, so what we see there is a common denominator of activity, right? Active movement, which is not the same thing as distraction, right? It's you're going somewhere, you're invested in it, right? All right, I'm going to I'm aware of our time, so I'm going to thank all of you guys on Instagram for being here. It's been wonderful I've been aware of your presence, and I want to thank everybody here as well. I'm still around after if anybody wants to talk or Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and sign off here. Thanks, you guys. Thank you.